Your
Happy
birthday is coming
birthday!
up. Someone asks, "So what are you doing this year?" And you give the answer that makes everyone uncomfortable. Nothing. It's just another day. Why does that answer bother people so much? Why does choosing silence over celebration feel like a rebellion? And more importantly, are you emotionally detached? Or are you psychologically different? Stay with me, because the reason might surprise you. Let's start with the first group, the ones who didn't stop celebrating by choice. They stopped because something inside them adjusted. In 1967, psychologist Martin Seligman introduced the concept of learned helplessness. When people experience repeated disappointment without control, the brain adapts. Not dramatically, quietly. It lowers expectations to reduce pain. Now think about birthdays. They're built on expectation. You expect messages. You expect effort. You expect to feel noticed. But what happens when those expectations aren't met more than once? Neuroscientist Wolfram Schultz discovered that dopamine doesn't just respond to reward. It responds to prediction error. The gap between what you expected and what you received. If the gap hurts enough times, your brain stops predicting the reward. It stops releasing the dopamine. And eventually, you stop caring. Not because you're cold, because your brain decided hoping costs too much. So when someone says, "It's just another day," ask yourself, is that indifference? Or is that emotional armor? But not everyone who ignores their birthday carries disappointment. There's a second group, and they look completely different. These are people whose identity isn't attached to milestones. Psychologists Edward Deci and Richard Ryan, creators of self-determination theory, found that the most psychologically stable individuals derive self-worth internally, not from external validation or rituals. Translation? They don't need a specific date to feel valuable. They don't need a public performance of love to believe they matter. While some people wait for one day a year to feel special, these people build a life where Tuesday feels enough. Ask yourself something uncomfortable. If nobody posted about you, if nobody organized anything, would you feel invisible or unchanged? That answer tells you more than the cake ever could. But here's where it gets deeper. There's a third group, and this one is complicated. They don't celebrate, not because they healed, but because they're protecting themselves. Psychologist Jennifer Crocker studied something called contingencies of self-worth. She found that some people avoid situations where their value might feel tested. Birthdays are risky. You allow yourself to want attention, to want effort, to want proof. And if it doesn't happen the way you imagined, it confirms your worst fear. So instead, you opt out. You pretend you don't care. But deep down, you do. And that's the real question. When you say, "It's just another day," is it peace? Or is it protection? Only you know. And there's one more layer most people never talk about: the anniversary effect. Researchers have found that emotional memories tied to specific dates can resurface subconsciously every year. You might not consciously remember that one birthday that felt empty, but your nervous system does. It prepares. It lowers expectations. It numbs before the day even arrives. So maybe skipping celebration isn't sadness. Maybe it's regulation. Some people celebrate loudly because they need proof they're loved. Some people celebrate quietly because they already know. And some people don't celebrate at all because they're still figuring out which one they are. So ask yourself honestly, if this year nobody mentioned your birthday, would you feel free or forgotten? Sit with that, because your answer matters more than the candles ever did. If this felt uncomfortably accurate, you're not strange. You're psychologically complex. And maybe that's why normal never fit you anyway. Subscribe if you want more psychology that explains the parts of you nobody talks about. And tell me in the comments, do you celebrate your birthday? Or did you stop for a reason? The next video might explain that reason.